Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 737th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the bondsmaid sent by Hayat Al-Nufus made her way to Ardashir and delivered him her lady's message, which when he heard, he wept with sore weeping and said to her, Know that Hayat Al-Nufus is my mistress, and that I am her slave and the captive of her love. I have not forgotten what was between us, nor the bitterness of the parting day. So do thou say to her, after thou hast kissed her feet, that I will speak with my father of her, and he shall send his wazir, who sought her aforetime in marriage for me, to demand her hand once more of her sire, for he dare not refuse. So if he send to her to consult her, let her make no opposition, for I will not return to my country without her. Then the handmaid returned to Hayat Al-Nufus, and kissing her hands, delivered to her the message, which when she heard, she wept for very joy, and returned thanks to Almighty Allah. Such was her case. But as regards Ardashir, he was alone with his father that night, and the great king questioned him of his case, whereupon he told him all that had befallen him first and last. Then quoth the son to the king, What wilt thou do for thee, O my son? An thou desire Abd al-Qadir's ruin, I will lay waste his lands, and spoil his hoards, and dishonour his house. Replied Ardashir, I do not desire that, O my father, for he hath done nothing to me deserving thereof. But I wish for union with her. Wherefore I beseech thee of thy favour to make ready a present for her father, but let it be a magnificent gift, and send it to him by the minister of the man of just judgment. Quoth the king, I hear and consent. And sending for the treasures he had laid up in times past, brought out all manner of precious things, and showed them to his son, who was very pleased with them. Then he called his wazir, and bade him bear the present with him to King Abd al-Qadir, and demand his daughter in marriage for Ardashir, saying, Accept the present, and return him a reply. Now, from the time of Ardashir's departure, King Abd al-Qadir had been troubled, and ceased not to be heavy at heart, fearing the laying waste of his reign and the spoiling of his realm, when, behold, the wazir came in to him, and saluting him, kissed ground before him. He rose up, standing, and received him with honour, but the minister made haste to fall at his feet, and kissing them cried, Pardon, O king of the age! The like of thee should not rise to the like of me, for I am the least of servants' slaves. Know, O king, that Prince Ardashir hath acquainted his father with some of the favours and kindness that thou hast done him. Wherefore he thanketh thee, and sendeth thee in company of thy servant who standeth before thee, a present, saluting thee, and wishing thee especial blessings and prosperities. Abd al-Qadir could not believe what he heard of the excess of his fear, till the wazir laid the present before him, when he saw it to be such gift as no money could purchase, nor could one of the kings of the earth avail to the like thereof. Wherefore he was belittled in his own eyes, and springing to his feet, praised Almighty Allah, and glorified him, and thanked the prince. Then said the minister to him, O noble king, give ear to my word, and know that the great king sendeth to thee, desiring thine alliance, and to come to thee seeking and craving the hand of thy daughter, the chaste dame and treasured gem Hayat Al-Nufus, in wedlock for his son Ardashir. Wherefore, if thou consent to this proposal, and accept of him, do thou agree with me for her marriage portion. Abd al-Qadir, hearing these words, replied, I hear and obey. For my part, I make no objection, and nothing can be more pleasurable to me. But the girl is of full age and reason, and her affair is in her own hand. So be assured that I will refer it to her, and she shall choose for herself. Then he turned to the chief eunuch, and bade him to go and acquaint the princess with the event. So he repaired to the harem, and kissing the princess's hand, acquainted her with the great king's offer, adding, What sayest thou in answer? I hear and I obey, replied she. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 738th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the chief eunuch of the harem, having informed the princess how she had been demanded in marriage by the great king, and having heard her reply, I hear and obey, returned therewith to the king, and gave him this answer. Whereat he rejoiced with exceeding joy, and called for a costly robe of honor, and threw it over the wazir's shoulders. Furthermore, he ordered him 10,000 dinars, and bade him carry the answer to the great king, and crave leave for him to pay him a visit. Hearing and obeying, answered the minister, and returning to his master, delivered him the reply, and Abd al-Qadir's message, and repeated all their talk, whereat he rejoiced greatly, and Ardashir was transported for delight, and his breast broadened, and he was a most happy man. King Saif al-Azam also gave King Abd al-Qadir leave to come forth to visit him. So on the morrow he took horse, and rode to the camp of the great king, who came to meet him, and saluting him, seated him in the place of honor, and gave him welcome. And they too sat while Ardashir stood before them. Then arose an orator of the king Abd al-Qadir's court, and pronounced an eloquent discourse, giving the prince joy of the attainment of his desire, and of his marriage with the princess, a queen among king's daughters. When he sat down, the great king caused bring a chest full of pearls and gems, together with 50,000 dinars, and said to King Abd al-Qadir, I am my son's deputy in all that concerneth this matter. So Abd al-Qadir acknowledged receipt of the marriage portion, and amongst the rest 50,000 dinars for the nuptial festivities, after which they fetched the Qazi and the witnesses, who wrote out the contract of marriage between the prince and the princess. And it was a notable day, wherein all lovers made merry, and all haters and enviers were mortified. They spread the marriage feast and banquets, and lastly Ardashir went in with the princess, and found her a jewel which had been hidden, a union pearl unridden, and a filly that none had ridden. So he notified this to his sire. Then King Saif al-Azam asked his son, Hast thou any wish thou wouldst have fulfilled ere we depart? And he answered, Yes, O king. Know that I would fain take my wreck of the wazir, who entreated us on evil wise, and the eunuch who forged a lie against us. So the king sent forthright to Abd al-Qadir, demanding of him the minister and the castrato, whereupon he dispatched them both to him, and he commanded to hang them over the city gate. After this they abode a little while, and then sought of Abd al-Qadir leave for his daughter to equip her for departure. So he equipped her and mounted her in a tagtron, a travelling litter of red gold, inlaid with pearls and gems, and drawn by noble steeds. She carried with her all her waiting women and eunuchs, as well as the nurse who had returned after her flight and resumed her office. Then King Saif al-Azam and his son mounted, and Abd al-Qadir mounted also with all the lords of his land, to take leave of his son-in-law and daughter. And it was a day to be reckoned of the goodliest of days. After they had gone some distance, the great king conjured Abd al-Qadir to turn back. So he farewelled him and his son, after he had strained him to his breast, and kissed him between the eyes, and thanked him for his grace and favors, and commended his daughter into his care. Then he went in to the princess and embraced her, and she kissed his hands, and they wept in the standing place of parting. After this he returned to his capital, and Ardashir and his company fared on till they reached Shiraz, where they celebrated the marriage festivities anew. And they abode in all comfort and solace and joyance of life, till there came to them the destroyer of delights, and the severer of societies, the depopulator of palaces, and the gardener of graveyards. And men also relate the tale of Julnar the Sea-Born, and her son King Badr Basim of Persia. There was once, in days of yore, and in ages times long gone before the Ajam land, a king, Shahriman, hight, whose abiding place was Khorasan. He owned 100 concubines, but by none of them had he been blessed with boon of child, male or female, all the days of his life. One day, among the days, he bethought of this, and fell lamenting for that the most part of his existence was past, and he had not been vouchsafed a son to inherit the kingdom after him, even as he had inherited from his father and forebears, by reasons whereof there betided him sore cark and care and chagrin exceeding. As he sat thus, one of his Mamelukes came in to him and said, O my lord, at the door is a slave girl with her merchant, and fairer than she eye hath never seen. Quoth the king, Hither to me with the merchant and maid. And both came into him. Now when Shahriman beheld the girl, he saw that she was like a Rudanian lance, and she was wrapped in a veil of gold-purfled silk. The merchant uncovered her face, whereupon the palace was illumined by her beauty, and her 7 tresses hung down to her ankles like horses' tails. She had natural cold eyes, heavy hips and thighs, and a waist of the slenderest guise. Her sight healed all maladies and quenched the fire of sighs, for she was even as the poet cries. I love her madly, for she is perfect fair, complete in gravity and gracious way, nor over tall nor over short, the while too full for trousers are those hips that sway. Her shape is midmost twixt or small and tall, nor long to blame nor long to gainsay. Overfall her anklets tresses black as night, yet in her face resplends eternal day. The king, seeing her, marveled at her beauty and loveliness, her symmetry and perfect grace, and said to the merchant, O Sheikh, how much for this maiden? Replied the merchant, O my lord, I bought her for 2,000 dinars of the merchant who owned her before myself, since when I have travelled with her 3 years, and she hath cost me up to the time of my coming hither. Other 3,000 gold pieces, but she is a gift to thee. The king robed him with a splendid robe of honor, and ordered him 10,000 ducats, whereupon he kissed his hands, and thanking him for his bounty and beneficence, and went his way. Then the king committed the damsel to the tire-woman, saying, Amend ye the case of this maiden, and adorn her, and furnish her a bower, and set her therein. And he bade his chamberlains carry her everything she needed, and shut all the doors upon her. Now his capital wherein he dwelt and called was the White City, and was seated on the seashore. So they lodged her in a chamber whose lattice casements overlooked the main. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 739th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the king, after taking the maiden, committed her to the tire-women, bidding them amend her case, and set her in the bower, and ordered the chamberlains to shut all the doors upon her where they had lodged her in a chamber whose lattice casements overlooked the main. Then Shahriman went in to her, but she spake not to him, neither took any note of him. Quoth he, 'Twould seem she hath been with folk who have not taught her manners. Then he looked at the damsel, and saw her surpassing beauty and loveliness and symmetry and perfect grace, with a face like the rondure of the moon at the full, or the sun shining in the sheeny sky. So he marveled at her charms of favour and figure, and he praised Allah the Creator, magnified be his might. After which he walked up to her and sat him down by her side. Then he pressed her to his bosom, and seated her on his thigh, kissed the dew of her lips, which he found sweeter than honey. Presently he called for trays spread with richest viands of all kinds, and ate and fed her by mouthfuls, till she had had enough. Yet she spoke not a word. The king began to talk to her, and asked her of her name, but she abode still silent, and uttered not a syllable, nor made him any answer, neither ceased to hang down her head groundwards, and it was but the excess of her beauty and loveliness, and the amorous grace, that saved her from the royal wrath. Quoth he to himself, Glory be to God, the Creator of this girl! How charming she is, save that she speaketh not. But perfection belongeth only to Allah the Most High, And he asked the slave girls whether she had spoken, and they said, From the time of her coming until now, she hath not uttered a word, nor have we heard her address us. Then he summoned some of his women and concubines, and bade them sing to her, and make merry with her, so happily she might speak. Accordingly they played before her all manner of instruments of music and sports and what not, and sang till the whole company had moved to mirth, except the damsel, who looked at them in silence, but neither laughed nor spoke. The king's breast was straitened. Thereupon he dismissed the women, and abode alone with that damsel. After which he doffed his clothes, and disrobing her with his own hand, looked upon her body, and saw it as it were a silver ingot. So he loved her with exceeding love, and falling upon her, took her maidenhead, and found her a pure virgin. Whereat he rejoiced with excessive joy, and said in himself, By Allah, 'tis a wonder that a girl so fair of form and face should have been left by the merchants a clean maid as she is. Then he devoted himself altogether to her, heeding none other, and forsaking all his concubines and favourites, and tarried with her a whole year, as it were a single day. Still she spoke not, till one morning he said to her, and indeed the love of her and the longing waxed upon him, O desire of souls, verily passion for thee is great with me, for I have forsaken for thy sake all my slave girls and concubines and women and favourites, and I have made thee my portion of the world, and had patience with thee a whole year, and now I beseech Almighty Allah of his favour to soften thy heart to me, so thou mayest speak to me, or, an thou be dumb, tell me by a sign, that I may give up hope of thy speech. I pray the Lord, extolled be he, to vouchsafe me by thee a son child, who shall inherit the kingdom after me, for I am old, and I am lone, and have none to be my heir. Wherefore Allah upon thee, and thou love me, return me a reply. The damsel bowed her head a while in thought, and presently raising it, smiled in his face, whereat it seemed to him as if lightning filled the chamber. Then she said, O magnanimous liege lord and valorous lion, Allah hath answered thy prayer, for I am with child by thee, and the time of my delivery is near at hand, though I know not if the unborn babe be male or female. But had I not conceived by thee, I had not spoken to thee one word. When the king heard her speech, his face shone with joy and gladness, and he kissed her head and hands for excess of delight, saying, Alhamdulillah, laud to Lord, who hath vouchsafed me the things I desired. First thy speech, and secondly thy tidings that thou art with child by me. Then he rose up and went forth from her, and seating himself on the throne of his kingdom in an ecstasy of happiness, bade his wazir distribute to the poor and needy and widows and others 100,000 dinars by way of thank offering to Allah Most High, and alms on his own account. The minister did as bidden by the king, who, returning to the damsel, sat with her, and embraced and pressed her to his breast, saying, O my lady, my queen, whose slave I am, prithee, what was the cause of this thy silence? Thou hast been with me a whole year, night and day, waking and sleeping, yes, thou hast not spoken a word to me till today. She replied, Hearken, O king of the age, and know that I am a wretched exile, broken-hearted and far parted from my mother and my father and my brother. When the king heard her words, he knew her desire, and said, As for thy saying that thou art wretched, there is no such speech, no ground, inasmuch as my kingdom and good and all I possess are at thy service. I also have become thy bondsman. But as for thy saying, I am parted from my mother and father and family, tell me where they are, and I will send and fetch them to thee. Thereupon she answered, Know then, O auspicious king, that I am called Julnar the Sea-Born, and that my father was of the kings of the main. He died, and left us his reign. But while we were yet unsettled, behold, one of the other kings arose against us, and took the realm from our hands. I have a brother called Salah, and my mother also is a woman of the sea. But I fell out with my brother, the pious, and swore that I would throw myself into the hands of a man of the folk of the land. So I came forth of the sea, and sat down on the edge of an island in the moonshine, where a passer-by found me, carrying me to his house, besought me of love less, but I smote him on the head, so that he all but died. Whereupon he carried me forth, and sold me to the merchant from whom thou hast me. And this was a good man, and a virtuous, pious, loyal, and generous man. Were it not for that thy heart loved me, and that thou promotest me over all thy concubines, I had not remained with thee a single hour, but had cast myself from this window into the sea, and gone to my mother and father. But I was ashamed to fare them words, being with child by thee, for they would have deemed me evilly of me, and would not have credited me, even although I swore to them. And I told them that a king had brought me with his gold, and made me his portion of the world, and preferred me over all his wives, and everything that was his right hand possessed. This then is my story, and the peace. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 740th night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Julnar the Sea-Born, answering the question of King Shahriman, told him her past from first to last, the king thanked her, and kissed her between the eyes, saying, By Allah, O my lady, and light of mine eyes, I cannot bear to be parted from thee 1 hour, and given thou leave me, I shall die forthright. What then is to be done? Replied she, O my lord, the time of my delivery is at hand, and my family needs must be present, that they may tend me. For the women of the land know not the manner of childbearing of the women of the sea, nor do the daughters of the ocean know the manner of the daughters of the earth. And when my people come, I shall be reconciled to them, and they will be reconciled to me. Quoth the king, How do the people of the sea walk therein without being wetted? And quoted she, O king of the age, we walk in the waters with our eyes open, as do ye on the ground, by the blessing of the names graven upon the seal ring of Solomon, David's son, on whom be peace. But, O king, when my kith and kin come, I will tell them thou hast boughtest me with thy gold, and hast entreated me with kindness and benevolence. It behoveth that thou confirm my words to them, and that they witness thine estate with their own eyes, and that thou learn that thou art a king, son of a king. He rejoined, O my lady, do what seemeth good to thee, and what pleaseth thee, and I will consent to thee in all that thou wouldest do. The damsel continued, Yes, we walk in the sea, and see what is therein, and behold the sun, the moon, the stars, and the sky, as if it were on the surface of the earth. And this irketh us not. Know also that there be many people in the main, and various forms and creatures of all kinds that are on the land, and that all that is on the land compared with that which is in the main is but a very small matter. And the king marveled at her words. Then she pulled out from her bosom 2 bits of Comorian line aloes in kindling fire in a chafing dish, chose some one of them and threw it in, and then she whistled a loud whistle, and spake words none understood. Thereupon arose a great smoke, and she said to the king, who was looking on, O my lord, arise and hide thyself in a closet, that I may show thee my brother and mother and family, whilst they see thee not. For I design to bring them hither, and thou shalt presently espy a wondrous thing, and shalt marvel at the several creatures and strange shapes which Almighty Allah hath created. So he arose without stay or delay, and entering a closet, fell a watching what she should do. She continued her fumigations and conjurations till the sea foamed and froth turbid, and there rose from it a handsome young man, a bright favour, as if he were the moon at its full, with brow flower white, cheeks of ruddy light, and teeth like the marguerite. He was the likest of all creatures to his sister, and the tongue of the case spoke in his praise these 2 couplets. The full moon groweth perfect once a month, but thy face each day we see perfected. And the full moon dwelleth in single sign, but to thee all hearts be dwelling stead. After him there came forth of the sea an ancient dame, with hair speckled grey, and 5 maidens as they were moons, bearing a likeness to the damsel hight Julnar. The king looked upon them as they all walked upon the face of the water, till they drew near the window, and saw Julnar, whereupon they knew her, and went into her. She rose to them, and met them with joy and gladness, and they embraced her, and wept with sore weeping. Then said they to her, O Julnar, how couldst thou leave us 4 years, and we unknowing of thine abiding place? By Allah, the world hath been straitened upon us for stress of severance from thee, and we have had no delight of food or drink, no, not for 1 day, but have wept with sore weeping night and day for the excess of our longing after thee. Then she fell to kissing the hands of the youth, her brother, and her mother and cousins, and they sat with her a while, questioning her of her case, and of that which betided her, as well as her present state. Know, replied she, that when I left you, I issued from the sea and sat down on the shore of an island, where a man found me and sold me to a merchant, who brought me to the city and sold me for 10,000 dinars to the king of the country, who entreated me with honor and forsook all his concubines and women and favorites for my sake, and was distracted by me from all he had and all that was in his city. Quoth her brother, Praised be Allah, who hath reunited us with us. But now, O my sister, 'tis my purpose that thou arise and go with us to our country and people. When the king heard these words, his wits fled him for fear lest the damsel accept her brother's words, and he himself avail not to stay her, albeit he loved her passionately, and he became distracted with fear of losing her. But Julnar answered, By Allah, O my brother, the mortal who brought me is the lord of this city, and he is a mighty king and a wise man, good and generous, with extreme generosity. Moreover, he is a personage of great worth and wealth, and hath neither son nor daughter. He hath entreated me with honor, and done me all manner of favor and kindness, nor from the day of his buying me to this time have I heard from him an ill word to hurt my heart. But he hath never ceased to use me courteously, doing nothing save with my counsel, and I am in the best of case with him, and in the perfection of fair fortune. Furthermore, were I to leave him, he would perish, for he cannot endure to be parted from me an hour, and if I left him, I also should die for the excess of the love that I bear him. By reason of his great goodness to me during the time of my sojourn with him, for were my father alive, my estate with him would not be like my estate with this great and glorious and puissant potentate. And verily ye see me with child by him, and praise be to Allah, who hath made me a daughter of the kings of the sea, and my husband the mightiest of the kings of the land. And Allah, in very sooth, he hath compensated me for whatso I lost. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale for today, till it be morrow.